The breath-holding champion story. Have you ever wondered what happens when someone pushes the wrong person too far? When bullies think they've found the perfect victim, only to discover they've made the biggest mistake of their lives. This is the story of Maya Chen, a quiet girl who seemed like an easy target until the day 3 popular students decided to seal her mouth and nose with silicone during what they thought would be harmless fun. What they didn't know was that Maya could hold her breath longer than a Navy SEAL. What happened next changed everything at Westfield High School forever. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Maya Chen had perfected the art of blending into the background. At 17, she moved through the hallways of Westfield High School like morning mist rolling in from Neptune Bay, present but somehow intangible. Her straight black hair fell like a curtain across her face, and she had developed the skill of looking busy even when she wasn't, always carrying a marine biology textbook or sketching pad to avoid unwanted attention. The coastal town of Neptune Bay was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where fishing boats dotted the harbor and the smell of salt air mixed with the aroma of fresh coffee from the dozen cafes that lined Harbor Street. Westfield High sat on a bluff overlooking the Pacific, its modern glass buildings designed to capture the ocean views that postcards were made of. The school took pride in its marine science program and its championship swim team, though Maya had never shown interest in joining either. What her classmates didn't know was that Maya spent her weekends volunteering with the Neptune Bay Coastal Rescue Unit, where she'd been quietly training since she was 14. Her grandfather, Chen Wei, had been a pearl diver in his youth, capable of descending 60 feet on a single breath and staying underwater for minutes at a time. The skill had been passed down through generations, and Maya had inherited not just the technique but the lung capacity and mental discipline that made her exceptional. Every Saturday morning, while her peers slept in or hung out at the boardwalk shops, Maya would slip into her wetsuit and practice breath-holding techniques with the rescue volunteers. She could stay underwater for over 6 minutes, a feat that impressed even the experienced divers. Her personal record, achieved just last month during a training session, was 6 minutes and 42 seconds. The rescue coordinator, a retired Navy diver named Captain Morrison, had told her she had natural talent that could take her to competitive levels if she wanted. But Maya preferred the shadows. Her father worked long hours at the Marine Research facility, and her mother taught kindergarten at the elementary school downtown. They were hardworking people who valued education and quiet achievement over popularity and social climbing. Maya had absorbed these values, finding satisfaction in her academic excellence and her secret weekend activities rather than seeking attention at school. The marine biology lab was Maya's sanctuary during lunch periods. While other students gathered in the oceanfront cafeteria with its panoramic views and social hierarchies, Maya would sit among the tide pool exhibits and preserved specimens, working on advanced projects that impressed her teacher, Mr. Patterson. She had already been accepted to 3 marine biology programs for the following summer, including one at the prestigious Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. Her artwork was another hidden talent. Maya's sketches of marine life were detailed and scientifically accurate, combining her passion for ocean creatures with an artistic eye that few people had ever seen. She kept her sketchbook private, filling it with drawings of sea anemones, kelp forests, and the various fish species she encountered during her volunteer work. The art teacher, Mrs. Sullivan, had noticed Maya's talent and frequently encouraged her to submit work to competitions, but Maya always declined. The social ecosystem of Westfield High was as complex as any marine environment Maya studied. At the top of the food chain were students like Jessica Walsh, whose father owned the largest commercial fishing operation in Neptune Bay, Jessica had the kind of effortless confidence that came from never having to worry about fitting in. Her blonde hair always perfectly styled despite the coastal humidity. Her designer clothes somehow making the school's dolphin-themed dress code look fashionable. Jessica's boyfriend, Tyler Brooks, was the captain of the swim team and the son of Neptune Bay's mayor. He carried himself with the easy athleticism of someone who had been swimming competitively since childhood, his broad shoulders and sun-bleached hair making him the subject of countless social media posts from admiring classmates. Tyler wasn't cruel by nature, but he had learned to follow Jessica's lead in social situations, sometimes participating in behaviors he might have questioned if he'd been alone. Chloe Martinez completed the trio, her family having moved to Neptune Bay when her mother became the head librarian at the town's historic library. Chloe had quickly aligned herself with Jessica, recognizing that social survival in a small town required strategic alliances. She was intelligent and funny, but she channeled these qualities into supporting Jessica's reign rather than establishing her own identity. Maya had managed to avoid their attention for most of her junior year, a feat that required careful timing and strategic route planning between classes. She knew which hallways to avoid during peak social hours, which bathrooms were safe havens, and how to position herself in classrooms to minimize unwanted interactions. Her teachers appreciated her participation in academic discussions, but Maya was careful never to outshine her peers in ways that might draw negative attention. The irony wasn't lost on her that she spent her weekends training for underwater emergencies while spending her school days trying to avoid social ones. In the ocean, Maya felt powerful and capable, her body moving through the water with grace and her mind calm even in challenging situations. At school, she felt vulnerable and exposed, despite being surrounded by people rather than the vast emptiness of the sea. Her only real connection at school was with Alex Rivera, a quiet boy who shared her interest in marine biology and spent his free time working on environmental projects. Alex's family had moved to Neptune Bay when his father took a job at the desalination plant, and he understood the challenges of being an outsider in a close-knit community. They had developed a friendship based on shared academic interests and mutual respect for each other's privacy. Maya's carefully constructed invisibility had served her well, but she was about to discover that sometimes the very qualities that make you try to hide are the ones that make you impossible to ignore. The Chen family had been part of Neptune Bay's fishing community for 3 generations, though most people at school didn't know this history. Maya's great-grandfather had arrived from Taiwan in the 1940s, working the dangerous abalone beds off the rocky coastline where others feared to dive. The family stories spoke of men who could descend to depths that seemed impossible, staying underwater long enough to harvest the valuable shellfish that brought premium prices in San Francisco's Chinatown markets. Maya's grandfather, Chen Wei, had continued the tradition but expanded beyond commercial diving. He became legendary among the local fishing crews for his ability to free tangled nets from underwater obstacles, often diving down 60 or 70 feet without equipment to solve problems that would otherwise require expensive professional divers. The old fisherman still talked about the time Chen Wei stayed underwater for nearly 7 minutes to free a boat's propeller from a mass of kelp and fishing line, emerging calm and unruffled as if he'd simply been holding his breath during a brief conversation. These weren't just family legends passed down through storytelling. Chen Wei had documented his techniques in detailed journals written in both Chinese and English, recording breathing patterns, meditation methods, and physical conditioning exercises that had been refined over decades of practice. When Maya turned 13, her grandfather began teaching her these techniques, recognizing in her the same natural lung capacity and mental discipline that had made their family exceptional. The training sessions took place at Moonstone Cove, a secluded beach 20 minutes south of Neptune Bay, where the water was deep and clear. Chen Wei would arrive before dawn with Maya, carrying thermos bottles of green tea, and practicing meditation techniques as the sun rose over the Pacific. He taught her that breath holding wasn't just about lung capacity, but about controlling heart rate, managing oxygen consumption, and maintaining mental clarity under pressure. Maya learned to slow her heart rate through controlled breathing exercises, reducing her body's oxygen demands before each dive. She practiced static apnea, floating motionless in the shallow water while holding her breath for progressively longer periods. Her grandfather taught her mammalian dive response techniques, showing her how cold water naturally triggered physiological changes that helped marine mammals stay underwater for extended periods. The mental training was equally important. Chen Wei taught Maya visualization techniques where she would imagine herself as a sea otter or harbor seal, creatures perfectly adapted for underwater life. She learned to enter a meditative state where time seemed to slow down, where the urge to breathe became manageable rather than overwhelming. These sessions required patience and gradual progression, with Maya's times improving steadily over months and years of practice. By age 16, Maya could comfortably hold her breath for 5 minutes in warm water, and her cold water times were approaching 4 minutes. Her grandfather was amazed by her natural ability, telling her that she had surpassed his own skills at the same age. He began teaching her more advanced techniques, including how to perform useful work underwater while maintaining breath control, skills that proved invaluable when she began volunteering with the Coastal Rescue Unit. The Neptune Bay Coastal Rescue Unit operated out of a converted warehouse near the commercial fishing docks, where volunteers trained for water emergencies that were unfortunately common along the rugged coastline. Maya had discovered the organization through a community service project, initially planning to help with paperwork and equipment maintenance. Captain Morrison, the unit coordinator, quickly recognized her unusual abilities and invited her to participate in water training exercises. The rescue work was serious business. Neptune Bay's coastline included treacherous rocky areas where inexperienced swimmers often got into trouble, and the rescue unit responded to emergencies ranging from equipment failures on fishing boats to tourists caught in riptides. Maya's breath-holding abilities made her uniquely valuable for underwater rescue scenarios, where traditional scuba equipment might be too slow to deploy or too bulky for confined spaces. During one memorable rescue exercise, Maya had demonstrated her abilities by retrieving a weighted dummy from 30 feet of water, simulating a scenario where someone had fallen from a boat and sunk quickly. While other volunteers struggled with the depth and cold water, Maya descended smoothly, secured the dummy, and surfaced with time to spare. Her calm demeanor underwater and her ability to think clearly while breath-holding impressed even the most experienced team members. Captain Morrison had encouraged Maya to consider competitive freediving, explaining that her natural abilities could take her to national and international levels. He showed her videos of world record holders who could stay underwater for 8 or 9 minutes, telling her that with proper training, she might be capable of similar achievements. Maya appreciated the recognition but preferred using her skills for practical purposes rather than competition. The rescue unit training also included emergency medical techniques, boat handling, and communication protocols. Maya learned to operate the unit's rigid inflatable boats, mastering navigation in rough seas and understanding how ocean conditions affected rescue operations. She studied weather patterns and tidal charts, developing an intuitive understanding of how Neptune Bay's waters behaved in different conditions. Her volunteer work required absolute discretion about her abilities. The rescue unit operated on the principle that their capabilities should never become public knowledge, partly for safety reasons and partly to avoid attracting thrill seekers who might create unnecessary emergencies. Maya understood that her breath-holding skills were to be used only for legitimate rescue situations, never for showing off or entertainment. This discretion extended to her family life as well. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. While her parents knew about her volunteer work, they didn't fully understand the extent of her underwater abilities. Maya's mother worried about the potential dangers of rescue work, and Maya found it easier to downplay her involvement rather than cause unnecessary anxiety. Her father was proud of her community service, but assumed she primarily helped with equipment maintenance and communication duties. The dual nature of Maya's life created an interesting psychological dynamic. At school, she was the quiet girl who rarely spoke in class discussions and avoided physical activities that might reveal her conditioning. On weekends, she was a confident and capable rescue volunteer who could perform underwater feats that amazed experienced divers. This contrast between her public and private selves had become so natural that Maya rarely thought about it consciously. Her academic excellence in marine biology was the only area where her two worlds intersected. Maya's understanding of ocean ecosystems, water safety, and marine physiology was enhanced by her practical experience, making her one of the top students in the program. Mr. Patterson often used her projects as examples for other students, though. He attributed her knowledge to exceptional research skills rather than hands-on experience. The approaching Ocean Day Festival was beginning to create excitement throughout Neptune Bay, with Westfield High School students planning various participation activities. Maya had been quietly helping with the marine biology exhibit, contributing detailed illustrations and research for educational displays. Her involvement was minimal and behind the scenes, exactly the way she preferred to operate in all aspects of her school life. Westfield High School's social hierarchy operated with the precision of a well-established ecosystem, each group occupying its designated territory with clearly understood boundaries and behavioral patterns. At the apex of this system sat Jessica Walsh, whose influence extended far beyond the typical reach of high school popularity. Her family's fishing empire, Walsh Maritime Enterprises, employed nearly a quarter of Neptune Bay's workforce, giving Jessica a level of social power that transcended teenage dynamics and touched the adult community as well. Jessica's domain within the school was the oceanfront cafeteria during lunch periods, where she held court at the corner table with unobstructed views of the harbor. This location wasn't chosen randomly, but served as a strategic command center, where she could observe the entire social landscape while remaining the focal point of attention. Her lunch companions rotated based on current social standings and Jessica's mood, but Tyler Brooks and Chloe Martinez maintained permanent positions in her inner circle. The cafeteria itself reflected Neptune Bay's maritime culture, with walls decorated in sea glass mosaics and hanging displays of local marine life. Large windows faced the harbor, where commercial fishing boats shared space with pleasure craft and the occasional Coast Guard vessel. During lunch periods, students could watch the daily rhythms of the working waterfront while navigating their own complex social waters. Jessica's power derived from multiple sources beyond her family's economic influence. She possessed an intuitive understanding of social dynamics that allowed her to identify vulnerabilities and exploit them with surgical precision. Her intelligence was considerable, though she applied it primarily to maintaining her position, rather than academic achievement. She could read people's insecurities and desires with remarkable accuracy, using this knowledge to build alliances or destroy reputations as circumstances required. Her physical presence commanded attention without effort. Standing 5 feet 7 inches with naturally blonde hair that caught sunlight streaming through the cafeteria windows, Jessica moved through crowds with the confidence of someone who had never questioned her right to occupy any space she chose. Her style was effortlessly expensive, wearing designer clothes that appeared casual but cost more than most families spent on clothing in a year. Tyler Brooks brought different qualities to their partnership. As captain of Westfield's championship, Swim team, he represented athletic excellence that complemented Jessica's social dominance. His father's position as mayor provided additional political connections, making Tyler valuable beyond his role as Jessica's romantic partner. Tyler genuinely cared about competitive swimming and ocean conservation, interests that occasionally conflicted with Jessica's more self-centered pursuits. Tyler's relationship with Jessica was complex, combining genuine attraction with social convenience. He appreciated her intelligence and ambition while sometimes questioning her methods. During private moments, Tyler could be thoughtful and kind, but in group settings, he often deferred to Jessica's judgment rather than risk confrontation. His athletic achievements had earned him scholarship opportunities to several universities, giving him a future that didn't depend entirely on Neptune Bay's social structures. Chloe Martinez represented the newest addition to Jessica's inner circle, having earned her position through a combination of wit, loyalty, and strategic usefulness. Her mother's role as head librarian provided access to information about students and families throughout the community, knowledge that Jessica found valuable for maintaining her social intelligence network. Chloe's quick humor and artistic talents made her genuinely enjoyable company, though she understood that her position remained conditional on continued utility. The three formed a formidable alliance that controlled much of Westfield's social atmosphere. Their approval could elevate unknown students to popularity, while their disapproval could result in effective social exile. They didn't rule through fear alone, but through a sophisticated combination of inclusion and exclusion that kept most students eager to maintain their good graces. Jessica's court extended beyond Tyler and Chloe to include rotating members who provided specific services or entertainment value. Madison Torres, whose family owned the popular Seahorse Cafe, provided social gathering spaces and inside information about community events. Brandon Nakamura, a talented photographer who documented school activities for social media, ensured that Jessica's image remained prominent in digital spaces. Sarah Kim, whose academic excellence rivaled anyone in the school, occasionally provided homework assistance in exchange for social protection. The group's activities centered around maintaining their dominance, while appearing to contribute positively to school culture. Jessica served on student council, though she used the position primarily to influence decisions that affected her interests. Tyler led environmental clubs that looked good on college applications, while requiring minimal actual commitment. Chloe organized art shows and cultural events that showcased her creativity while reinforcing her value to the group. Their power extended into academic realms as well. Teachers who depended on community support for their programs learned to accommodate Jessica's preferences, while coaches understood that alienating the mayor's son could affect athletic funding. This created an environment where academic and social success became intertwined, making it difficult for students to excel in one area while remaining completely independent of the other. The social mapping of Westfield High placed different student groups in clearly defined territories. Athletes dominated the gymnasium areas and practice facilities, while academic achievers controlled library spaces and specialized classrooms. Artists and musicians claimed the creative wings, while various clubs and organizations maintained smaller territorial claims throughout the building. Jessica's group moved freely between all these areas, their influence transcending traditional boundaries. Maya Chen existed entirely outside this system, which was both protective and isolating. Her academic excellence in marine biology was recognized by teachers, but didn't translate into social currency because she avoided the networking and relationship building that could have amplified her achievements. Her artistic talents remained hidden in private sketchbooks rather than being displayed in school exhibitions, where they might have earned recognition and social connections. The art department at Westfield High occupied a series of interconnected studios overlooking the school's courtyard, where Mrs. Sullivan encouraged students to explore various media and techniques. Advanced art students had access to professional-grade equipment, including kilns, printing presses, and a well-stocked supply room containing everything from traditional paints to modern synthetic materials used in contemporary sculpture and installation work. Among these supplies were various adhesives and sealants used for mixed media projects and sculpture work. Industrial-strength silicone sealant was kept for projects involving water-resistant installations, while epoxy compounds were available for students working with metal and glass. Mrs. Sullivan maintained strict protocols for using these materials, requiring signed permission forms and supervised access to prevent accidents or misuse. The supply room operated on a checkout system where students signed for materials and returned unused portions at the end of class periods. Advanced students who demonstrated responsibility could earn extended access privileges, allowing them to work on complex projects during study halls or after school hours. Jessica Walsh had earned these privileges early in the semester, though her interest in art was primarily social rather than creative. Jessica's presence in advanced art classes stemmed from her recognition that artistic achievement could enhance her college applications while providing opportunities to network with culturally minded community members. Her projects were competent, but uninspired, focusing more on creating impressive visual presentations than exploring genuine creative expression. She approached art the same way she approached other aspects of her life, as another arena for demonstrating superiority and maintaining influence. The collision between Maya's invisible existence and Jessica's expansive domain began during fourth period marine biology, when Mr. Patterson announced a collaborative project that would pair students for the upcoming Ocean Day Festival presentation. The assignment required teams to create educational displays about local marine ecosystems, combining scientific research with visual presentations that would engage festival visitors of all ages. Maya's heart sank as Mr. Patterson explained that partnerships would be randomly assigned to encourage students to work outside their comfort zones. She had hoped to work alone or possibly with Alex Rivera, whose quiet competence matched her own approach to academic work. Instead, the random selection process paired her with Jennifer Walsh, Jessica's younger sister who shared many of her siblings' social instincts, but lacked the intelligence to wield them effectively. Jennifer was a sophomore who had struggled to establish her own identity while living in Jessica's considerable shadow. She possessed the same blonde hair and confident bearing as her older sister, but her academic performance was mediocre, and her social skills relied heavily on family connections rather than personal charisma. The marine biology assignment represented an opportunity for Jennifer to excel in an area where Jessica had shown little interest, potentially earning recognition that wasn't merely reflected glory from her sister's achievements. The project pairing created an immediate problem for Maya's carefully maintained invisibility. Working with Jennifer meant increased visibility within the Walsh family sphere of influence, potentially drawing Jessica's attention to someone who had successfully avoided notice for most of the school year. Maya understood the delicate social calculations involved and realized that her academic success could easily be interpreted as showing up Jennifer, which might trigger defensive responses from the powerful Walsh network. During their first planning session, held in the marine biology lab during lunch period, Maya attempted to structure their collaboration in ways that would highlight Jennifer's contributions while keeping her own role minimal. She suggested that Jennifer handle the visual presentation aspects while Maya focused on research and data collection, hoping this division would allow both to succeed without creating competitive tension. Jennifer, however, had different ideas about their partnership. She recognized Maya's academic reputation and saw the collaboration as an opportunity to produce exceptional work that would impress both Mr. Brandon Nakamura, a talented photographer who documented school activities for social media, ensured that Jessica's image remained prominent in digital spaces. Sarah Kim, whose academic excellence rivaled anyone in the school, occasionally provided homework assistance in exchange for social protection. The group's activities centered around maintaining their dominance, while appearing to contribute positively to school culture. Jessica served on student council, though she used the position primarily to influence decisions that affected her interests. Tyler led environmental clubs that looked good on college applications, while requiring minimal actual commitment. Chloe organized art shows and cultural events that showcased her creativity while reinforcing her value to the group. Their power extended into academic realms as well. Teachers who depended on community support for their programs learned to accommodate Jessica's preferences, while coaches understood that alienating the mayor's son could affect athletic funding. This created an environment where academic and social success became intertwined, making it difficult for students to excel in one area while remaining completely independent of the other. The social mapping of Westfield High placed different student groups in clearly defined territories. Athletes dominated the gymnasium areas and practice facilities, while academic achievers controlled library spaces and specialized classrooms. Artists and musicians claimed the creative wings, while various clubs and organizations maintained smaller territorial claims throughout the building. Jessica's group moved freely between all these areas, their influence transcending traditional boundaries. Maya Chen existed entirely outside this system, which was both protective and isolating. Her academic excellence in marine biology was recognized by teachers, but didn't translate into social currency because she avoided the networking and relationship building that could have amplified her achievements. Her artistic talents remained hidden in private sketchbooks rather than being displayed in school exhibitions where they might have earned recognition and social connections. The art department at Westfield High occupied a series of interconnected studios overlooking the school's courtyard, where Mrs. Sullivan encouraged students to explore various media and techniques. Advanced art students had access to professional-grade equipment, including kilns, printing presses, and a well-stocked supply room containing everything from traditional paints to modern synthetic materials used in contemporary sculpture and installation work. Among these supplies were various adhesives and sealants used for mixed media projects and sculpture work. Industrial-strength silicone sealant was kept for projects involving water-resistant installations, while epoxy compounds were available for students working with metal and glass. Mrs. Sullivan maintained strict protocols for using these materials, requiring signed permission forms and supervised access to prevent accidents or misuse. The supply room operated on a checkout system where students signed for materials and returned unused portions at the end of class periods. Advanced students who demonstrated responsibility could earn extended access privileges, allowing them to work on complex projects during study halls or after school hours. Jessica Walsh had earned these privileges early in the semester, though her interest in art was primarily social rather than creative. Jessica's presence in advanced art classes stemmed from her recognition that artistic achievement could enhance her college applications while providing opportunities to network with culturally minded community members. Her projects were competent, but uninspired, focusing more on creating impressive visual presentations than exploring genuine creative expression. She approached art the same way she approached other aspects of her life, as another arena for demonstrating superiority and maintaining influence. The collision between Maya's invisible existence and Jessica's expansive domain began during fourth period marine biology, when Mr. Patterson announced a collaborative project that would pair students for the upcoming Ocean Day Festival presentation. The assignment required teams to create educational displays about local marine ecosystems, combining scientific research with visual presentations that would engage festival visitors of all ages. Maya's heart sank as Mr. Patterson explained that partnerships would be randomly assigned to encourage students to work outside their comfort zones. She had hoped to work alone or possibly with Alex Rivera, whose quiet competence matched her own approach to academic work. Instead, The random selection process paired her with Jennifer Walsh, Jessica's younger sister who shared many of her siblings' social instincts, but lacked the intelligence to wield them effectively. Jennifer was a sophomore who had struggled to establish her own identity while living in Jessica's considerable shadow. She possessed the same blonde hair and confident bearing as her older sister, but her academic performance was mediocre, and her social skills relied heavily on family connections rather than personal charisma. The marine biology assignment represented an opportunity for Jennifer to excel in an area where Jessica had shown little interest, potentially earning recognition that wasn't merely reflected glory from her sister's achievements. The project pairing created an immediate problem for Maya's carefully maintained invisibility. Working with Jennifer meant increased visibility within the Walsh family sphere. Patterson and her parents. Jennifer's expectations were ambitious, envisioning a presentation that would showcase the Walsh family's commitment to educational excellence and environmental stewardship, topics that aligned with her father's business interests and her brother Tyler's conservation activities. The research phase of their project required extensive use of the school's marine science resources, including access to preserved specimens, microscopy equipment, and the tidal pool observation area behind the main building. Maya found herself spending increasing amounts of time in public spaces, working with Jennifer on aspects of marine ecosystem documentation that drew attention from other students and faculty members. Maya's knowledge of local marine life proved far more extensive than Jennifer had anticipated. During their examination of tide pool specimens, Maya identified species that weren't included in the standard curriculum and explained ecological relationships with depth that impressed Mr. Patterson when he observed their work sessions. Her familiarity with seasonal migration patterns and feeding behaviors suggested hands-on experience that went beyond textbook learning. Jennifer initially appreciated Maya's expertise, recognizing that their project would benefit from such detailed knowledge. However, she gradually became uncomfortable with the extent to which Maya's contributions overshadowed her own efforts. Despite Maya's attempts to emphasize collaborative aspects and highlight Jennifer's visual presentation skills, it became clear that the intellectual foundation of their work depended heavily on Maya's specialized knowledge. The tension escalated when Mr. Patterson selected their preliminary research as an example to share with other marine biology classes, praising the sophistication of their ecological analysis and the accuracy of their species identification work. Jennifer found herself in the awkward position of receiving recognition for work she didn't fully understand, while Maya remained characteristically modest about her contributions to their success. Word of the exceptional marine biology project reached Jessica through the intricate communication networks that kept her informed about all significant developments within the school community. Sarah Kim, who served in Jessica's extended social circle, mentioned the project during a student council meeting where various Ocean Day Festival preparations were being discussed. Jessica's initial reaction was pride in her sister's academic achievement, but this sentiment shifted when she learned more details about the collaboration dynamics. Jessica's investigation into the project partnership revealed information that surprised her. Maya Chen, the quiet girl who had remained virtually invisible throughout the school year, possessed knowledge of marine biology that exceeded most students and some faculty members. Her contributions to Jennifer's project were substantial enough that Mr. Patterson had specifically mentioned Maya's insights during a department meeting attended by several school board members. The realization that someone had been operating below Jessica's social radar while possessing exceptional abilities created a sense of territorial chainfluence, potentially drawing Jessica's attention to someone who had successfully avoided notice for most of the school year. Maya understood the delicate social calculations involved and realized that her academic success could easily be interpreted as showing up Jennifer, which might trigger defensive responses from the powerful Walsh network. During their first planning session, held in the marine biology lab during lunch period. Maya attempted to structure their collaboration in ways that would highlight Jennifer's contributions while keeping her own role minimal. She suggested that Jennifer handle the visual presentation aspects while Maya focused on research and data collection, hoping this division would allow both to succeed without creating competitive tension. Jennifer, however, had different ideas about their partnership. She recognized Maya's academic reputation and saw the collaboration as an opportunity to produce exceptional work that would impress both Mr. Classmates who had never shown interest in their project began asking detailed questions about their research methods and findings, creating interruptions that slowed their progress and made Maya increasingly self-conscious about her contributions to their work. The library incidents became more pointed when Maya discovered that books she had requested through the reservation system were consistently unavailable, despite being marked as present in the catalog. Chloe Martinez, whose mother managed the library, always appeared helpful when Maya inquired about the missing materials, expressing concern about the inefficiency while promising to investigate the problems. However, the issues persisted with suspicious regularity, forcing Maya to rely on her personal research resources and limiting her ability to expand their project beyond her existing knowledge. Jessica's strategy was sophisticated in its subtlety, designed to create stress and disruption without providing clear evidence of deliberate harassment. The incidents were minor enough that complaining would seem petty, yet frequent enough to establish a pattern of inconvenience that made Maya's school experience increasingly difficult. Jessica understood that prolonged low-level pressure could be more effective than dramatic confrontations in wearing down someone's psychological defenses. The social media component of Jessica's campaign was particularly insidious because it operated largely beyond Maya's awareness. Photos taken during classes or lunch periods began appearing on various students' accounts with captions that highlighted Maya's academic intensity in ways that suggested social awkwardness or excessive competitiveness. The images were captured from angles that emphasized her solitary habits and serious demeanor, creating a narrative of social isolation that served Jessica's purposes. Tyler Brooks found himself increasingly uncomfortable with Jessica's focus on Maya, though he didn't fully understand the scope of what was developing. His observations of Maya during pool activities had revealed nothing suspicious. Merely a student who avoided water-related recreation despite obvious academic interest in marine science. Tyler's athletic background made him sensitive to signs of hidden physical capabilities, but Maya's complete avoidance of pool areas prevented him from gathering useful intelligence. The pressure on Jennifer Walsh to maintain the quality of her marine biology project while managing her sister's growing interest in her academic partner created additional complications for Maya's situation. Jennifer began asking more personal questions about Maya's background and interests, probing for information that clearly originated from Jessica's curiosity rather than genuine academic collaboration. These conversations made Maya increasingly guarded, further limiting their project's potential while creating tension in their working relationship. Alex Rivera noticed the changes in Maya's behavior before she fully recognized them herself. Their friendship was built on mutual respect for privacy and shared academic interests, but Alex possessed observational skills that allowed him to detect subtle shifts in Maya's stress levels and social interactions. During one of their quiet conversations in the marine biology lab, Alex mentioned his concern about Maya seeming more tense lately, offering support without pressuring her to explain the sources of her discomfort. Maya appreciated Alex's sensitivity, but found it difficult to articulate her growing unease about the increased attention from Jessica's social circle. The incidents were individually minor and could easily be explained as coincidences or normal school social dynamics, yet their cumulative effect was creating anxiety that interfered with her ability to maintain her preferred invisibility. She began varying her routes between classes and spending more time in areas where Jessica's influence was minimal, strategies that required constant vigilance and planning. The art department became a focal point for escalation when Jessica began spending more time in the advanced studios, ostensibly working on her college portfolio, but actually observing the dynamics between different student groups. Mrs. Sullivan noticed Jessica's increased presence, but attributed it to genuine artistic development rather than social maneuvering, encouraging Jessica's apparent dedication to her creative work. Jessica's access to art supplies and facilities provided opportunities for more creative forms of harassment that maintained plausible deniability while increasing psychological pressure on her target. She began experimenting with different materials and techniques, familiarizing herself with the properties of various adhesives and sealants that were available for legitimate artistic purposes. Her projects became more ambitious and technically complex, requiring extended time in the studios and unsupervised access to specialized equipment. The advanced art students enjoyed considerable freedom in their use of studio spaces and materials, with Mrs. Sullivan trusting their maturity and artistic judgment to guide their creative exploration. This environment of trust and independence was essential for developing artistic skills, but it also created opportunities for misuse that were difficult to detect or prevent through supervision alone. Jessica's growing familiarity with silicone sealants and their properties was driven by genuine artistic curiosity as well as strategic planning. She learned about different formulations designed for various applications, from quick-setting compounds used for temporary installations to permanent adhesives that created waterproof seals. Her legitimate artistic projects provided cover for extensive experimentation with these materials, allowing her to understand their working times, curing processes, and removal methods. Chloe Martinez's involvement in the escalating situation deepened when Jessica asked her to gather more specific information about Maya's family background and weekend activities. Chloe's position as the librarian's daughter provided access to community records and local newspaper archives that revealed some details about the Chen family's history in Neptune Bay, though nothing that explained Maya's exceptional marine biology knowledge or her apparent comfort with ocean-related topics despite avoiding school water activities. The research revealed that Maya's grandfather had been involved in commercial fishing operations decades earlier, and that her father worked at the marine research facility outside town. This information suggested possible sources for Maya's specialized knowledge but didn't explain why she maintained such a low profile about abilities that could have earned her significant recognition and academic opportunities. Tyler's discomfort with Jessica's investigation intensified when he realized the extent of information gathering that was taking place. His own athletic achievements had always been celebrated publicly, and he couldn't understand why someone would deliberately hide exceptional abilities rather than using them for recognition and advancement. The concept of choosing invisibility over acclaim was foreign to Tyler's experience, making Maya's behavior seem suspicious rather than simply modest. The breakthrough in Jessica's intelligence gathering came through an unexpected source when Madison Torres mentioned overhearing a conversation between Maya and Alex Rivera about weekend volunteer activities. Madison's family restaurant was popular with community service organizations, and she had developed an ear for recognizing discussions about local volunteer opportunities that might benefit her family's business through catering or event hosting. The reference to volunteer work involving water safety and emergency response provided Jessica with the first concrete clue about Maya's weekend activities and possible sources of her specialized knowledge. Further investigation through Tyler's connections in the athletic community revealed that the Neptune Bay Coastal Rescue Unit accepted student volunteers, though their activities were kept deliberately low profile to avoid attracting thrill seekers or creating public relations complications. Jessica's discovery of Maya's involvement with the Coastal Rescue Unit reframed her entire understanding of the situation. Someone who volunteered for water emergency response would necessarily possess swimming abilities and water safety knowledge far beyond typical high school students. Yet Maya had never demonstrated these skills in school settings or used them for social advancement. The deliberate concealment of such impressive capabilities suggested strategic thinking that Jessica found both threatening and intriguing. The revelation transformed Jessica's interest from casual curiosity to serious, competitive concern. Maya wasn't simply an overlooked student with hidden talents, but someone who had consciously chosen to operate below the radar while developing skills that could be extremely valuable in Neptune Bay's ocean-oriented community. Jessica began to see Maya as a potential rival who had been positioning herself advantageously while avoiding the social dynamics that Jessica used to maintain her own dominance. The confrontation planning began when Jessica realized that exposing Maya's hidden abilities could serve multiple purposes. Demonstrating that someone had been deceiving the school community about their capabilities would damage Maya's credibility and trustworthiness, while revealing impressive skills would force Maya into the spotlight, where she would have to compete directly with established social leaders rather than operating independently. Jessica's strategy required careful timing and an audience large enough to ensure that whatever happened would become widely known throughout the school community. The art studio provided an ideal location because it offered privacy for the initial confrontation while being accessible to other students who could serve as witnesses. The availability of silicone sealants and other materials provided options for creating situations that would test Maya's responses under pressure. The psychological dynamics of the planned confrontation were complex, involving Jessica's need to maintain her dominant position while exposing what she perceived as Maya's deceptive behavior. Jessica had never encountered someone who deliberately chose invisibility over recognition, and this behavior pattern challenged her fundamental assumptions about social motivation and competitive dynamics. Tyler and Chloe were brought into the planning process through gradual exposure to Jessica's reasoning and evidence rather than direct recruitment to a harassment campaign. Jessica presented her concerns about Maya's dishonesty and hidden agenda in ways that emphasized community safety and social integrity rather than personal competition, making her friends feel like they were addressing legitimate issues rather than participating in bullying behavior. The plan that emerged involved creating a situation where Maya would be forced to demonstrate her water-related capabilities or face consequences that would expose her perceived deception to the school community. Jessica's knowledge of silicone sealant properties suggested methods for creating breathing restrictions that would test someone's ability to remain calm under pressure, while providing opportunities for rescue that would reveal hidden skills. Maya remained largely unaware of the investigation and planning activities occurring around her, though her instinctive caution made her increasingly careful about her movements and interactions within the school environment. Her training with the Coastal Rescue Unit had developed her situational awareness and threat assessment abilities, but these skills were oriented toward ocean emergencies rather than social manipulation and interpersonal conflict. The final preparations involved Jessica ensuring that she had reliable access to art studio facilities during periods when other students might be present, but adult supervision would be minimal. Advanced art students often worked during study halls and after-school periods, creating opportunities for unsupervised interactions that could escalate beyond normal classroom dynamics. Jessica's selection of silicone sealant as her primary tool reflected both practical considerations and psychological impact factors. The material's properties would create genuine physical challenges that could test someone's emergency response capabilities, while the dramatic nature of sealing someone's breathing passages would generate strong emotional reactions from witnesses and ensure lasting impact on school social dynamics. The timing was set for a Thursday afternoon when Maya typically worked alone in the marine biology lab on her project materials before meeting with Jennifer for their collaboration sessions. Jessica's plan required intercepting Maya during this vulnerable period and creating circumstances that would force her into the art studio, where the confrontation could take place with appropriate witnesses present. Tyler's role in the plan involved ensuring that other students would be present in the art studios during the critical period, while Chloe's responsibility included documenting the events through photography that could later be shared through social media channels to maximize the impact of whatever revelations occurred. The psychological pressure on all participants was intensifying as the planned confrontation approached. Jessica felt the weight of her social position and reputation, riding on successfully exposing what she believed was Maya's deceptive behavior, while Tyler and Chloe struggled with growing doubts about the ethics and potential consequences of their involvement in the escalating situation. Maya continued her daily routines, unaware of the specific plans being developed around her, though her general sense of being watched and evaluated had created a background level of stress that was beginning to affect her academic performance and emotional well-being. Her natural tendency toward caution and privacy was being reinforced by the increasingly uncomfortable social environment, making her more withdrawn and defensive in her interactions with other students. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test not only Maya's hidden abilities, but also the moral boundaries and social dynamics that governed relationships within the Westfield High School community. Jessica's plan represented the culmination of weeks of investigation and strategic thinking, but it also carried risks that she hadn't fully considered, particularly regarding Maya's potential responses and the long-term consequences for everyone involved. The Thursday afternoon arrived with typical Neptune Bay weather, overcast skies, and the persistent smell of salt air that permeated all activities within the coastal community. Maya followed her usual routine, stopping at her locker to collect materials for her marine biology work before heading to the lab, where she could continue developing illustrations for her project with Jennifer. The familiar pattern of her movements and timing made her predictable in ways that served Jessica's planning requirements. Maya's entry into the art studio occurred exactly as Jessica had anticipated, with Maya being redirected from her usual route by a maintenance closure that forced students to take alternative paths through the building. The detour led directly past the advanced art studios where Jessica was waiting with Tyler and Chloe, their positioning carefully arranged to create the impression of casual artistic work rather than deliberate ambush preparation. The initial interaction began with Jessica's characteristic friendly approach, expressing interest in Maya's marine biology project and asking about her collaboration with Jennifer. Maya responded politely but cautiously, maintaining the respectful distance that had served her well in previous encounters with Jessica's social circle. However, this time Jessica's questions became more pointed and personal, probing into Maya's background knowledge and weekend activities with persistence that made retreat impossible. Tyler and Chloe's presence added psychological pressure to the confrontation by creating an audience that transformed the interaction from a private conversation into a public performance. Maya found herself responding to questions about her expertise in marine biology while feeling increasingly trapped by the group dynamics and the confined space of the art studio. Jessica's transition from questioning to accusation was skillfully executed, presenting evidence of Maya's exceptional knowledge and volunteer activities in ways that portrayed them as deliberate deception rather than personal privacy choices. The accusations of dishonesty and hidden agendas were delivered with conviction that made them seem reasonable to Tyler and Chloe, while creating defensive pressure that pushed Maya further into an uncomfortable corner. Maya's attempts to explain her privacy choices and modest approach to her abilities were met with skepticism and continued pressure to demonstrate the water-related skills that Jessica claimed she was hiding from the school community. The demand for proof created a situation where Maya faced choosing between maintaining her privacy and submitting to tests that would expose her carefully guarded capabilities. The escalation to physical confrontation occurred when Maya attempted to leave the art studio and found her path blocked by Tyler, whose athletic size and positioning made exit impossible without direct physical resistance. Jessica's move toward the supply cabinet containing silicone sealants marked the transition from verbal pressure to genuine physical threat. Though the action was presented as a method for testing Maya's claimed water safety expertise, Jessica's application of silicone sealant to Maya's mouth and nose was executed with technical precision that reflected her weeks of preparation and experimentation with the material's properties. The quick-setting compound created an immediate breathing restriction that would test any normal person's panic response, while providing opportunities for rescue that would reveal exceptional breath-holding capabilities. Maya's initial reaction to the breathing restriction was controlled and methodical rather than panicked, drawing on years of training with her grandfather and the Coastal Rescue Unit to assess the situation and manage her physiological responses. Her immediate recognition that this was a test of her abilities rather than a random attack allowed her to approach the problem strategically rather than emotionally. The 40-second mark passed without visible distress from Maya, surprising Tyler and Chloe, who had expected immediate panic and struggle from someone experiencing breathing restrictions. Jessica watched carefully for signs of the emergency response training that she believed Maya was hiding, looking for evidence of the exceptional abilities that justified her weeks of investigation and confrontation planning. At 1 minute, Maya's calm demeanor began to unsettle her captors, who had anticipated either panic that would prove her ordinary limitations or rescue attempts that would reveal her hidden skills. Instead, Maya remained composed and alert, her eyes focused on Jessica with steady attention that suggested conscious control rather than shock or fear. The 2-minute mark created genuine concern among the 3 perpetrators, who realized that their test was extending far beyond normal human tolerances without producing the expected results. Tyler began to question the safety of their actions, while Chloe started to understand that they might have seriously underestimated Maya's capabilities and the potential consequences of their confrontation. Maya's training allowed her to extend her breath-holding time while remaining mentally sharp, enough to observe her captor's growing anxiety and plan her response accordingly. Her grandfather's teachings about remaining calm under pressure and using opponents' expectations against them guided her strategy for managing the situation and its aftermath. At 3 minutes, Jessica realized that she had encountered something far beyond her understanding or preparation. Maya's continued consciousness and apparent comfort with the breathing restriction suggested abilities that exceeded anything Jessica had imagined possible, forcing her to reconsider her assumptions about human limitations and her own position in the confrontation. Tyler's athletic background gave him some appreciation for breath control and cardiovascular conditioning, but Maya's performance was approaching levels that challenged his understanding of human physiology. His growing alarm about the situation's safety began to override his loyalty to Jessica's plan, creating internal conflict about whether to intervene or continue supporting the test. Chloe's documentation of the event through photography captured Maya's remarkable composure and the perpetrator's increasing distress, creating evidence that would later serve purposes none of them had anticipated. The images revealed the power dynamics of the situation while providing proof of Maya's extraordinary abilities and the deliberate nature of the confrontation. At 4 minutes, Maya made her choice about how to conclude the demonstration. Rather than continuing indefinitely or attempting to remove the sealant herself, she decided to reveal enough of her capabilities to establish her competence, while maintaining some mystery about the full extent of her training and abilities. Maya's method of dealing with the silicone sealant demonstrated both her technical knowledge and her controlled approach to emergency situations. Using techniques learned through her rescue training, she managed to create small breathing passages without appearing to panic or struggle, showing skill that clearly exceeded normal emergency response capabilities. The revelation of Maya's abilities transformed the entire dynamic of the confrontation, shifting power from the perpetrators to their intended victim in ways that none of them had fully anticipated. Jessica's plan to expose deception had instead revealed exceptional competence that elevated Maya's status while highlighting the perpetrator's poor judgment and dangerous behavior. Tyler's immediate recognition that they had made a serious error in judgment led to his stepping back from the confrontation and beginning to assess the potential consequences of their actions. His athletic background made him appreciate the level of training and conditioning required for Maya's performance, while his social awareness helped him understand how dramatically the situation had shifted. Chloe's continued documentation captured the transformation from confrontation to revelation, providing evidence that would later protect Maya while creating accountability for the perpetrator's actions. Her artistic eye recognized the dramatic nature of what she was witnessing, though she was only beginning to understand its full significance. Jessica faced the collapse of her strategic planning and social positioning as Maya's demonstration revealed capabilities that commanded respect rather than exposing deception that justified punishment. The confrontation had backfired completely, creating admiration for Maya while highlighting Jessica's willingness to use dangerous methods against fellow students. Maya's handling of the situation's aftermath demonstrated the same controlled competence she had shown during the breathing restriction, addressing immediate safety concerns while maintaining dignity and avoiding unnecessary escalation. Her response revealed character qualities that further enhanced her reputation, while providing opportunities for constructive resolution rather than continued conflict. The immediate consequences of the confrontation rippled through the Westfield High School community as word spread about Maya's remarkable demonstration and the circumstances that had prompted it. Students who had previously ignored Maya began to recognize her exceptional abilities, while those who had supported Jessica's social dominance started to question the methods used to maintain that position. Maya's emergence from invisibility was complete and irreversible, but it occurred on terms that reflected her character and capabilities rather than the exposure and humiliation that Jessica had planned. The confrontation had revealed Maya's strengths while highlighting the perpetrator's weaknesses, creating a social dynamic that favored competence and integrity over manipulation and dominance. The long-term implications of the incident extended beyond immediate social consequences to include questions about leadership, character, and the values that should guide student interactions within the school community. Maya's demonstration had established new standards for what constituted genuine strength and worthy behavior, while Jessica's methods had been revealed as inadequate and potentially dangerous. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.